welcome back to the second episode of Omijati. I'm your host Shangguan here. Recently, as I'm preparing for the Korean proficiency exam topic, I had some new thoughts on language learning and words memorization that I want to share with you. So in today's episode, I'm going to share 3 tips on how to better remember words. I once heard this analogy before that learning a new language is like constructing a new building. And in order to construct that new building, you need to collect bricks, which are the words. But this process is not always fun. In fact, I think word memorization are one of the biggest barriers for most of us. Without words, you cannot form proper sentences, and you cannot understand what other people are saying either. Recently, I'm reading this book by a Hungarian writer called Lob Kato. She is a polyglot, and her book name is Polyglot: How I Learn Languages. She actually learned 16 languages, mostly all by herself, and she never stepped out of her motherland before 40 years old. So that's quite an accomplishment. And in this book, she pointed out one thing that when adults are learning new languages, it's different from infants. Because for infants, the process is quite effortless. They just pick up whatever words people around them are saying because they need those words to satisfy their basic needs. But for adults, it's different. Because we already have logical thinking, the first question when we encounter a new word is why? Why is the word the way it is? And my solution to that is you better remember the origin of the word. No matter what language you're learning, if you're learning German or Italian or Spanish, they probably all share some common words originated from Latin. And for me, because I'm learning Korean, more than 50% of the Korean words are originated from Chinese characters. So to give you an example, let's take the word sipun, which means food. And instead of remembering the word and its meaning in your mother tongue, you should try to remember the Chinese character associated with each of the Korean character, sik and pun. So where do we see the word si most often? You probably heard this word when you go to a restaurant, 식당. And if you go to a Western restaurant, it's called 양식. And if you go to a Chinese restaurant, it's called 중식. So you kind of get an idea that 식 probably are related to some food or eating behavior. And you're right. Eating or food is exactly the meaning of 시 in Chinese characters. And what about the word pun? Where have you heard it before? If you want to return a good to a store, you say panpun. And if you want to comment on the quality of the good, quality is 품질 in Korean. So pun probably means goods or something related to goods. And you are exactly right. Pun means goods in Korean characters, and that's also the meaning in Chinese characters. This method will take some extra effort in the beginning because you not only remember one word, sipun, you also need to remember 2 more characters, si and pun separately. But the good thing is you only need to do it once. And later, when this character is combined into some other words, you will be able to guess even if you have never encountered that word before. I think it's a pretty good deal that you only remember it once and then use it countless times in the future. Another benefit of this method is that it will also improve your spelling. I don't know about you, but I always got spelling mistakes in my Suki writing. But if I know the origin of the characters, then it's unlikely that I'm going to confuse the spelling of different characters because they have different meanings. And this method will work regardless of whether you know Chinese or not. If you see a character keep repeating in some words, you will kind of figure out its meaning and you just need to remember the original meaning. For non-Korean speaking audience, I also make a few English examples so you can better understand how this method will work. Take the word biology as an example. The character bio originated from ancient Greek, and the meaning is any living creatures. So that's why in English you will hear biology class, and your body matrix is called biometrics. Isn't that fun? Another example is aqua. Aqua originated from Latin. which means related to water. So aquarium is a place that children likes to go, and aquatic means anything living in the water. I think that's enough. You should get an idea of how remembering the origin of the words will help you remember more words. My tip number 2 is context is important. I heard this analogy from one of my favorite polyglot YouTuber, Hou Xueqian, Phoenix. I'll link his channel in the description. But he once said that when you first remember a new vocab, it's like you put a screw on the wall. You didn't put it that deep, so that if you hand anything even a little bit heavier, it will fall out, and you will quickly forget the word. And the only way to prevent it from falling out is to tie it with other words, tie it with context. With this analogy in my mind, as I'm going through my vocab list, I think my goal is not to remember the words all at once and expect to never forget them. I think the mere purpose of going through a vocab book is to have an impression. It's like nail that screw in your brain, so that later when you encounter the word in real life, you will be able to recognize it. And while you're recognizing it, you are also grabbing the context. That way, when you go back to the vocab list, you'll never forget that word. I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, I ran into my landlord, and I saw his arm was broken, so I asked him what happened. And he said, 넘어졌어요. And at that time, I didn't understand what the word means, but because this word is tied to the scene that his arm is broken and his facial expression, so I was able to went home and look it up on my vocab list, and I saw it means fall down, so he said he fell down, so that's how he broke his arm. And because I pick up these words not just from the vocab list, also from real life, I was able to retain the memory quite long. It's kind of like playing Pokemon Go in real life. Instead of catching little Pokemon, you're catching the words you learned from books, hopefully in real life. And my tip number 3 is repetition, repetition, repetition. As an INTJ, I'm always looking for efficiency and how can I get the best result with the least amount of efforts and least amount of time. But I think this is not possible with language learning. There's no real hacks in language learning. It's just not possible to pick up a new language in 3 months. You may be able to pass a test in 3 months, but you still couldn't speak fluently in 3 months. So give yourself more time and don't beat yourself up if you forget the words you once remembered. Every time you refresh your memory on a word, it's like you curve things on the wall. And the deeper you curve it, the longer you will able to retain the word, but there's no guarantee that you will forever remember it. But the good news is there are ways for you to gamify the process and make word memorization more fun. My tip number 3 is I'm going to walk you through my workflow on how to make repetition more fun. So when I go through a brand new Korean vocab list, I will try to hide its explanation and only see the Korean word. And the first time I go through it, I will write down what I think the meaning is and compare with the actual meaning. This way, I will be able to filter out the words that I don't know or I mistakenly understood. And the second step is I will add those unfamiliar words to a flashcard app. You can use Quizlet, and I've also heard good things about Anki. It doesn't matter. The benefit of having a mobile app flashcard is that you can refresh your memory anywhere. Like I said, curve the words into your brain. And another good thing that I noticed is that if you keep using the printed out version or the physical booklet vocab list, sometimes I don't really remember the words, but I remember the location of the word on the booklet, so I can say out loud what the meaning of the word is. But that's not because I remember it. It's only because it appeared on the word list so that I was able to recall its position and hence its corresponding meaning. But I would never be able to recognize it in real life, so that's not helpful. But with a mobile flashcard, you can actually mix the different words so that you don't remember it by the order. And another benefit of using this mobile app is that it will remind you when you should review those words. Because our brain has this thing called forgetting curve. It's discovered by a German psychologist, Hermann Ebbinghaus. The key idea is that if you don't refresh your memory, you will forget things exponentially. I'll give you an example. I'm pulling up my Quizlet right now, and I created a vocab list for myself. It says that my one-day memory is 98%. Quite good. And my 1 week memory will decline to 81%, which means I will forget 20% of the things if I don't review in a week. And my 1 month's memory is only 50%. So if I don't review in a month, half of the words I will be completely unable to recognize them. It's kind of scary looking at that. So now you know why a mobile flashcard is important. However, if you want to go one step further, I recommend also preparing a physical flashcards. You can get it in any kind of stationery stores. I got it from Muji. And after I go through a couple rounds of the words on my mobile app, I still have a couple words that I never be able to remember. So this is where the physical flashcard come into play. Write down those most difficult words on the physical flashcard so you can review it anytime. While you're waiting to get your order in your restaurant or waiting for the train to come in a subway, anytime you can review 1 or 2 words. Remember, curve that word into your brain. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you find those tips helpful. And if you want to hear more about language learning tips, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.